and shouldn't be. If you're going to use a chemical fuel, you should use CH4, not H2. But nonetheless, it is needed for industrial processes and can be produced just by splitting water, essentially.
I mean, something that's been done for decades and decades. Yeah. This is not, rocket technology.
Yeah.
And lastly, a small part of the pie, but a necessary part of the pie, is sustainably fueling planes and boats. Shipping accounts for 3% of global CO2. It's ripe for electrification. Even with lithium iron phosphate, long-haul ships can be fully battery-powered. So that's a great opportunity to electrify. Energy density is a little bit harder for planes, but short-haul is doable today. With some improvements, we'll get long-haul underway. But even in the meantime, we can leverage sustainable aviation fuels produced and stored using excess renewable electricity. There's a lot of work going on in this space. And it's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to really get long-range aircraft and long-range shipping to use lithium-ion, you need to redesign the ship and not just
or the plane.
And the plane to take advantage of the fact that it is a new source of energy. It's a different architecture, so. Just like with an electric car, you wouldn't just take a gasoline car and stick a battery in it. That's very suboptimal. It's much more efficient to have the battery be the structure of the car, and make it mass efficient and optimized for batteries. The same if that's done with aircraft, I think you can get long-range aircraft at around with cells at around 450 watt-hours per kilogram. Which you can buy it right now, actually. It's expensive, but I think that price will come down.
So when we stack up all of these efforts, we end up with the numbers we shared at the beginning of the presentation. 30 terawatts, 240 terawatt hours, $10 trillion. And you may be saying, like, I need some context. Is this feasible? Spoiler alert, it's entirely feasible. Just looking at it from a growth rate perspective, how much do we need to grow the deployment of these technologies? We're talking about only a 3x growth rate in solar and wind deployment. Solar is already growing at a breakneck pace, as is wind. This gap is going to be closed really quickly. When we look at the electric vehicles, they have to grow 11x. Well, they grew 60% year on year last year. That growth rate is also going to close that gap is going to close pretty quickly as well. And lastly, storage. Tesla's energy storage business has grown at 65% CAGR since 2016. The global, energy storage business is accelerating pace as well. I mean, all these gaps are going to close, especially as this momentum of the transition to sustainable energy accelerates. And of course, our goal on this page is 20 million EVs per year and 1 terawatt hour of stationary storage per year, basically as soon as we can. And then, what about this investment? How do I have a reference point on this investment? Elon mentioned it's 10% of, 1 year's world GDP. Another way of thinking about it is how does it compare to what we're investing, like what we invested last year in the fossil fuel infrastructure? And it's 60% of that investment. So actually, building this sustainable energy economy is less than extending the fossil fuel economy from a year-over-year investment basis. So very doable. When we look towards, does this fit on the planet? Absolutely. Less than 0.2% of land. As a reference point, the total land area intensively farmed today is 12.5% of all land. So, I mean, you drive around, you see some farms, but you don't see them everywhere. This is an order of magnitude, more than an order of magnitude difference between farming and what we're talking about for sustainable energy land.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to displace farmland
of
or
course not, yeah.
Forests or jungle or any kind of ecological preserve. It can be used in very sparsely populated desert regions.
Yeah. Barren areas.
Yeah.
Areas that are just not really fit for development or otherwise used. So
yeah,
I mean, 0.2% can fit into a lot of places.
Yeah, there's essentially no meaningful ecological impact. In fact, transition to a sustainable energy economy would result in a substantial reduction in current ecological impact.